Now on Overnights,
I believe in reason and common sense.
Leith Van Onselen from Macro Business with the Treasury of Common Sense.
Common sense never goes out of style.
Mr. Van Onselen is Chief Economist of the MB Fund and MB Super and co-founder of Macro Business. He's on the line. Good morning, Leith.
G'day, Mike. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I was reading a piece of yours today about the disappearing middle class. Over time, throughout history, it's always the middle class that are annoying to the people up the top, aren't they? I mean, the lower classes, not so much because they don't have the wherewithal to be a real problem. The middle classes who've seen the possibilities, they can be the problem. But good news for the elites, and to my mind these days, I don't know what you think, but it's not so much left and right anymore, it's elites and the rest. But the good news for the elites, I suppose, is the disappearance of the middle class. What do you say?
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. It's a class war, basically, that we've got. And yeah, look, I mean, unfortunately, it gets distracted with all this sort of culture wars sort of stuff that politicians like to bang on about. They always like to distract.
Well, that's all it is, isn't it? It's a distraction. We're not addressing the real issues. I mean, what about housing? We keep talking about it. You say the Premier pretends to care, but what's the Chinese saying? Look not at what a man says, but what he does.
That's right, mate. It's it was quite funny watching the New South Wales Premier Chris Minns this week. So he took to Twitter on Tuesday and, wrote this impassioned plea about how it's terrible that so many young Sydney-siders are leaving Sydney. And it's based on the New South Wales Productivity Commission report I think we discussed about a month ago. And it basically showed that about 40,000 households aged between 30 and 40 left Sydney in the last census period. So that's between 2016 and 2021. And, Premier Minns did a tweet saying it's terrible, but we're going to fix the problem. We're going to fix the problem by rezoning Sydney into high density and to get the supply side going, because young people of Sydney deserve to be able to live in this city like their parents did and their grandparents did, blah, blah, blah. Look, I get his concern. Sydney's housing is a disgrace. Got the highest house prices in the country. The median house price in Sydney is about $1.6 million currently, according to Domain, which is just astronomical. And, the median asking rent in Sydney is over $750, and that's also the highest in the country, and that's mostly for apartments. It's almost $1,000 a week if you want a detached house. So it's, it is extraordinarily expensive there, and that is driving people out. The problem I've got with Premier Minns is that in September last year, he fully backed the Albanese government's record immigration program and said that he actually wanted more immigration into New South Wales. So he's, on the one hand, bemoaning the lack of supply and expensive housing in Sydney, but then on the other hand, less than 6 months ago, he was lobbying the federal government for even more immigration on top of the record immigration that we've already had. And just to put the numbers into perspective, the New South Wales population last financial year, which is the most recent data we got, grew by 174,000 people. And guess what net overseas migration in New South Wales was? 176,000.
Yes.
So, the demand is being juiced like you would not believe through immigration. And just one other fact, in the decade to June 2023, which is the most recent data we've got, New South Wales added 935,000 people, Mike. And guess how many of those came from net overseas migration? 792,000, which is 85%. So, any talk of a housing supply problem in Sydney gets back to this problem of excessive population growth through migration. And while Premier Minns is complaining about the supply situation, saying we've got to upzone everything into high-rise apartments, on the other hand, he's lobbying the federal government for even more immigration, which is going to make the whole situation worse. I mean, it has to. Like, you don't fix the supply problem by fire hosing more demand.
Indeed.
It's just crazy. So he's basically gaslighting.
He is gaslighting, but he's saying, though, Leith, that apparently this huge influx of migrants, there's going to be a lot of people who want to work in the construction industry, so that'll fix it.
Yeah, which is crazy. So what, we're going to import migrants to build homes for migrants? I mean, it's factually incorrect because the construction industry is actually shockingly underrepresented with migrant workers. It's actually got a much lower share of migrant workers than all other sectors pretty much.
Yes, I don't see how it can do anything but. I saw something in today's Age which I thought was interesting. Apparently in Melbourne they're talking about building places near transport hubs, similar situation in Sydney. But one of the differences now with those new apartments is there won't be necessarily any mandated parking. So you will get to live like a battery hen and have to take public transport because there's nowhere to put a car. I'm guessing that's the kind of idea that might catch on in Sydney. What do you think?
I suppose it is a way to get the cost down a little bit. But the concern I've got about it is that, Premier Minns, and same in Victoria, they want the same thing.
Yep.
They want to basically, rezone everything to high-rise apartments. Problem is we had an experiment in the 5 years leading up to the pandemic where both New South Wales, so Sydney and Melbourne, both built record numbers of apartments. And guess what? They were terrible quality. Yes. So we had flammable cladding, we had leaky balconies, we've had, the Opal mascot towers and all the other, dodgy buildings that were built. And they're going to cost billions of dollars to fix. You got some people have lost their basic life savings because their houses, their apartments are no longer habitable. So the solution to this extreme immigration is to build more of these shoddy high-rise apartments, it seems, because it worked so badly, last decade. So let's do it again, all over again. Hey, Mike.
It's just deteriorating. How can it be? I keep asking that. But in this country with so much in the way of natural resources, raw materials, whatever, agriculture, we used to have a very well-educated population, but it all just seems to be getting worse and worse. And I kind of implied at the beginning that maybe it was a plot, it was a scheme. But to be honest with you, Leith, I don't think these people are that smart. I think it's just reactive management, and they really do not know what to do, and they keep, spinning this nonsense.
Yeah, and we've also obviously we don't really have any industry in Australia anymore. So
no, none of that.
So the only way that they know how to grow the population is to just keep importing people. Well, and that seems to keep the economy ticking over. But obviously, it's terrible for living standards, as we've all experienced, and it's very short-sighted. And they don't really want to do the hard yards on actually creating industries anymore. And in fact, we do everything we can in this country to destroy industries because we create expensive energy and things like that, even though we're an energy superpower, which makes manufacturing, for example, uncompetitive. But yeah, look, you're certainly right. It's just, they're bereft of ideas, and they're obviously conformed to their lobbyists, their lobby paymasters, which is generally big business, the property lobby, who obviously love big migration. So, it's just, it's a sorry situation, but nothing irks me more than a politician getting up there pretending to care about the housing crisis, while on the other hand, lobbying the federal government for even more immigration, when that's what's basically the primary cause of the rental crisis right now, is we've got too much demand, too many people. We're basically importing too many renters when we can't build enough houses for those renters. So therefore the rental vacancy rate collapses to a record low and rents get pushed through the roof, which is basically what's happened. And the solution is certainly not to do the old hair of the dog approach and just double down and import even more people, thinking that that's the solution, when that's actually the cause of the problem. And that's basically what Chris Minns, the same thing's happening down here in Victoria. Just the politicians seem to think that migration is the cure when it's actually the problem. And look, I don't want to be anti-migration. I'm not. I'm anti-excessive migration. And the numbers we've seen really in the last 15 years have just been bonkers, but especially the last 18 months have been incredibly bonkers. But
the migration just papers over the real economic facts, doesn't it? So that Smiling Jim can say, oh, look, we went up by whatever, 0.1% or whatever it is. But the quality of life keeps going down, which takes us back to the Sydney situation where the young folk are getting out. I don't blame them. And of course, if they can work from home, why would you work from home in Sydney if you can pay 1/3 of the rent in the Gold Coast and live there? That seems nice enough. But I just wanted to finish up here, Leith, this morning. How bad does it have to get before it gets better?
Look, I think unfortunately it's going to continue to get worse for a bit longer, Mike, because the Australian Bureau of Statistics on Tuesday, I think it was, released some data on the number of homes that were actually added. So This isn't just your dwelling construction or approvals. This is actually the net increase in the dwelling stock. And it showed that we only added, it was 166,000 homes last calendar year.
Yeah.
And that's against a population increase of 680,000.
Yes.
So basically, we only added one home for every 4.5 new residents. And that's basically why the rental vacancy rates collapsed to a record low. We've got too many people, not enough supply. And unfortunately, I can't see that situation, turning around at least in the foreseeable future, because not only do we still have strong migration, the dwelling construction rates are actually falling. So even if migration comes down a bit, the chances are we're going to be building less houses as well to go with that. So we're just going to have this, this crazy imbalance between demand and supply for, at least the time being.
It's an ugly picture, Leith, but thank you for coming on the program and telling it like it really is.
Thanks, Mike. Speak to you next time.
Leith Van Onselen, Chief Economist at the MB Fund and MB Super and co-founder of Macro Business.